Okay. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Mariana Garcia. Right now, I'm UX designer at One Login. I come from Mexico. I live in Guadalajara. And I work there as a professor in a university. And also work with many startups in Guadalajara, small startups, basically. And basically, I used to work on a startup called WIPAO, which all the research I did was based on that startup. Well, right now I just put the One Login logo because they sponsored my trip, so. But I don't know what's wrong with it. But okay, WIPAO, it is a software as a service platform. I work with them, and basically we were doing a software to allow the companies to pre-screen an interview, to pre-screen candidates, and also pre-record those interviews. So basically, the software, it was kind of complex. Because it not only allows the user, in this case the recruiter, to record themselves and the candidate, but also to assess that candidate. So the thing is, we started having problems with our interface because suddenly they start to grow a lot. We work with big companies as Adidas, Manpower, and they were asking for a lot of information, for a lot of layers. The software starts very small, but then start to grow very heavy. There was a point, I was the only UX designer there. There was a point where it was hard for me to keep the consistency in the application, and the software started becoming very, very complex, all the interfaces, all the UI, and all that kind of stuff. So I realized that when I tried to see the competence, other companies, also enterprise, ERPs, they were very complex, but also those companies not only were complex, but also very, very crowded. The interface was very hard to understand, and I didn't know why. So I made myself that question. About like why our enterprise system notoriously hard to use, and the thing is, I believe that we designed those interfaces for a generic public, a generic audience. Obviously, we are a startup, so we wanted to create one fit all. We wanted to create a software that allows the flexibility for all the different companies. And we didn't realize that each company have their own process. In each company, Adidas, Manpower, Walmart, everyone, they wanted to build our software to fit into their process. So when I realized that, I start to searching for usability patterns that allows me to create a nice interface, something that could fix those usability problems, or also to fix somehow the complexity inside of those interfaces. And I couldn't. I didn't find anything because everything was focused on the user-centered design. Everything was very oriented to create interfaces only for one user. And then I started doing a little bit of research about how can we improve that. Then I started thinking that enterprise software is not user-centered focused. Because most of the enterprise software is mostly oriented to task completion and process optimization. When we talk about like interfaces as Facebook, as I don't know, Google, Obviously, the interface is oriented to make the one user happy, but also is for joy, for their own benefit, because they want to use those applications. They choose to use those applications. And in enterprise, I realized that this not happen. Most of the users are forced to use that interface, that software, and they don't like it, and they have to use it to work. So I was thinking, like, how can I create interfaces for those type of users? But also I had at the same time the thinking of, I also have problems, because right now the company is the one who is asking me to add more layers. Adidas was the only one who's asking me, like, hey, we need to add a security level system. We need to add this other integration with other system. We need more flexibility, but also we need to be more robust. We need to grow the application. And I was like, okay, how can I manage all this information? I have a lot of things to do inside of the interface. I can add a lot of buttons, but also at the same time, when I was going when I was on the meetings with the clients, most of the clients, they were telling me, like, Mariana, yeah, the interface is too complex. We need to make it easier. We need to make it also just for new users, because the new users see the interface very complex. But also, we want the users who already use the interface to be very robust. They want more interactivity. They want to be more tools to create more stuff. And I was wondering, how can I balance that? How can I balance between that robustness? How can I do an interface easy for that users, for the new users? Also, how can I achieve that part of the business? Because at the end of the day, the business is important. But also, I didn't realize that also there was a collaboration there inside of these interfaces. So I did a research about, like, what are the problems, why I couldn't create an interface very easy, why I couldn't identify those problems, why the requirements are still growing so much. And I went with some salesperson, and I realized that enterprise buyers aren't the users. I guess this is a big problem in the enterprise world. When we go to sell a software, the buyers are not the users, but they have requirements, and we need to meet them. We need to meet those requirements, and we will gather the information from that. But also, I realized that vendors, we build applications to satisfy the client's perception. Sometimes the client is probably the VP of human resources or VP or the owner, but they don't even use the application of the software. So I start to ask my product manager, like, hey, why we don't talk with the users and understand that the users need? It was very hard for me. Also realized that there is this futurities as a strategy, because when you work on enterprise, you are competing with the best companies out there, and all the companies out there, some of them are very, very big, as Oracle, and other big companies I faced too. And those companies, they have a big amount of resources, money, people, developers, time. And sometimes they have more time. They are in the market. They've been for long time. And I realized that they ask for these futurities as a strategy. All the companies, when you go and sell your product, they ask you for a lot of features, and they don't even consider the value proposition of your product. They don't even care sometimes. They just have sometimes a list, and it says like, okay, you can connect with my server, you can do this, you can have video chat, you can, and then this fight of if you have more features, you are more likely to be both. It is a problem. And when I saw the product manager's roadmap, it was full of features that were not oriented to focus on the user. It was more like to build a big product. In all these problems, I have to deal, or at least the UX and UI team have to deal, because we need to satisfy all of these demands. Because at the end, I believe as a user experience, that at a certain point, we need to focus on the users, but also we need to understand the business requirements, and we need to earn money. If we don't earn money, there is a problem there. So I really try to see how can I balance all these things. But then, how can we improve the enterprise usability? I was reading about a lot of usability tests and heuristics and everything to how can I improve the interface, but I couldn't find anything. So at the end, I read something of Nielsen, and Nielsen was suggesting that we can improve usability in enterprise software product if we try to focus also in 3 main levels, which I believe this makes the difference between the user-centered design that we are used to, because right now all the interfaces are ruled by that. User-centered oriented, basically only the user and their needs, but we don't even realize that when we talk in software, we don't only need to focus on individuals, but also in teams, because these individuals are doing activities very complex, and in enterprise we support very complex operations, business operations. So the individual, it doesn't work by himself. He also collaborates with other areas, with other people, with other groups, and we never consider those interfaces also to be like that. And also we need to take into consideration the enterprise as a whole. I believe if we really try to understand these 3 levels when we design those interfaces, we can give a better approach of how to design an interface. Because we will learn how this individual collaborate with the group, with the enterprise, and vice versa. And it's something that Nielsen talked about, but also there is a book, there is a research that is called collaboration theory, that it mentions a lot of this thing of how can the interfaces can collaborate. The thing right now with the collaboration theory, it says like right now we have this model of a slave master, where the master is the user and the slave is the computer. And obviously right now this is the direction that have the interfaces. But collaboration theory, it says like, why don't we put at the same level the interface and the user, and we try to, or allow them to collaborate, to ask, to give information, to receive information, and when the computer or the system receives the information, it will show an interface based on those needs. So this is something that it says the collaboration theory, And I really like that part, because I really think that can help that problem in enterprise. But we need to evaluate the user's need in the system roles to understand that. So not only the users, but also I needed to track everything, what's happening with the users and the roles and the interactions that a user has with other people, and that's something that collaboration theory asks for. Basically, those research were doing by Gross and Shiver, and it says that the computer system should be designed to act as a user partner to process a goal achievement somehow. In order to do this, one of this approach suggests that we need to study and evaluate the user's needs, referring as activity modeling for representing the users. The system, the roles, and the roles itself. Yeah? Obviously, this approach is focused on the performance and the creation of tools to enhance the efficiency and the collaboration. And I use everything in collaboration theory to start analyzing my own interfaces and trying to find new outputs or new solutions to that problem. The principles of collaboration are basically the commitment to join the activity. So one user or two users need to agree to join or to collaborate. If they are not aware that they need to collaborate, this is not going to work. That's what we call probably interaction, where they try to work together, but they don't understand each other. So that's interaction, but not collaboration. So it should exist commitment. Also, it should exist responsiveness. Responsiveness means that each participant looks for change their own behavior to try to work or to collaborate with other person. Also, we have the mutual support. The mutual support, it means that each party is commitment to help the other. And also, it should exist communication. If they don't communicate each other, if they don't coordinate what are the tasks that each one needs to do, also this is not going to happen. So based on these four principles, I try to do my research. My research was oriented to login and authentication issues with a type of stakeholder. What it means, it's I worked in the company. We had this login problem with one of our clients. Basically, I'm going to show you the type of users. In WIPAO, we have these users. One is the VP of hiring HR, the HR country manager, the recruiter, and a hiring manager. These four individuals are the persons who interacts in our interface right now. The VP is the one who takes the decision if it's going to hire WIPAO for their recruiter, and he's the one who says like, yeah, I'm interested on this. And this HR country manager is the one who is evaluating the recruiters and their team. And sometimes he also makes the decision of what improvements we need to do inside of the interfaces. And the recruiter is the main user who uses our application. But this recruiter, it doesn't work by himself. It also collaborates with other recruiters. but not only with all other recruiters, but also with the hiring manager, because at the end, the hiring manager is the one who's making the final decision if a candidate should be hired or not. So when they use our interface, the hiring manager needs to interact in a very active way with the recruiter. The recruiter knows their process. They already know how to proceed inside of our application. They know their process, how to hire a candidate, how to evaluate that candidate, how to share that candidate with the country manager. And the problem is the hiring manager, it's a very busy person. A hiring manager is always running. He is always understaffed. He's always in a hurry to have a new candidate. And this person doesn't have too much time. So when a recruiter is calling him like, hey, you know, I have a candidate, you need to see this candidate and everything, then the hiring manager is like, okay, I'm too busy, share with me, I'll talk to you later, I will see that candidate later. So these guys are very busy. The thing is, we try to make these both persons to collaborate themselves. We try that the hiring manager to provide him a tool to evaluate those candidates. But the thing is, for him, was very, very hard to do that, because the software is oriented for the recruiter. But when we ask the hiring manager, like, hey, you should log in into our application to see a candidate, then the hiring manager starts complaining a lot, like saying, like, oh, okay, you know, this thing, WePow, whatever, is asking me for my credentials, and I have hundreds of credentials on this company, and I don't have time for this, you know. So what if you only share the video of the candidate with me, and I will do the rest of the job? And the recruiter says, okay, I cannot do that because the company is asking me to use this tool WePow, which we pay for a lot of money, and we need to really use that application. And that's when the system breaks, and that's when our interface, it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't allow the people to collaborate between themselves. Obviously, we don't have the same problems between recruiters, because between recruiters, they use the same system, so there is no problem in that part. But everything started not working when we introduce another person inside of the equation. So we identified that problem, and we say, like, hey, how can we improve that? How can we still allow the recruiter to share that candidate with the hiring manager without problem, frictionless, with only one login or one account or whatever? And how can we also keep consistency in the application and have security? Because at the end, the software and the enterprise world, they were asking us for a lot of security. So I'm going to show you, guys, this is basically how it looks like, the interface. We were only asking for email address and password. It was not so hard. It was very easy. But for a manager who's running, and they don't need to use this application, and this application is only for recruiters, they say, like, okay, I'm not going to use that. This is a very big effort for me. So we try. This was everything that I told you guys. It's an assumption. So I try to validate this assumption with data to really identify if there was an issue to solve there. And we try to check all our the database, our logs. And if you can see the manager sessions, we have a big churn. Because in order for a manager to access the application, they need to register. And that's what happened with basically with the registers. the registers in the first days are very high. The people send a lot of registers to the managers, but if you see suddenly just only a couple of them, they start to log in the application. So we can say that our churn was very, very high, and we were losing a lot of hiring managers. And part of the business strategy inside of WIPAO was to collaborate with hiring managers. And if the hiring managers don't want to collaborate, then our software is not so efficient in that side. And it was a big, big, big problem for product. So with this information, we realized that we really, really need to solve this problem somehow. So the thing is, we did a lot of interviews. I tried to talk with those users to identify the mental models, the patterns, understand how a manager collaborates with a recruiter, how a recruiter collaborates with a manager, with a hiring manager, and try to define everything. Also, this is the access and the structure of how different companies work. Because another problem was like, yeah, sure, we can try to solve the problem for Adidas, which was one of the biggest clients. But the same problem, it happened to Walmart and to other companies. And the problem between these three other companies was that these three other companies, they were also, they had different process. And also they have a different chart of how to communicate themselves. So really it was very hard to define those patterns and how to identify like how the people communicate themselves. At the end, we realized that they never, all these companies, they don't work the same way. They work in a different way. And they structure themselves also very different. So it was very hard to identify a good path. Also, this is the access that they have to the application. We try to understand that access. And this is the part of the interface where we have all the settings. And we were forced to have different limited, different types of access. One was this limited easy access. This limited easy access was a patch for that problem because with the limited easy access, they don't need to log in. We just only granted like 3 times in 50 days to access to any person who had the link. But come on, we are dealing here with candidates' data. And if this link is lost and someone has have access to that link, we will show very confidential data. So it was very, very, very important for us to try to manage this somehow. We also have this easy access, and we have the most secure access. But we always had have these options, but none of them worked for the users. They still were complaining. The hiring managers were so, like they forgot to check their email, and they lost their email. So these 15 days, they passed, and they realized like 20 days, like, oh, I want to see again the candidate. And they click, and the link didn't work, and they were complaining with the recruiter, like, hey, this link is not working. What's happening? And the recruiter says, okay, you need to log in. You need to have your credentials. And the recruiter and the hiring manager says, like, no, I'm not going to do that. So this was not working. The lazy registration pattern didn't work, and none of them work. So at the end, I tried to analyze this through the collaboration principles. And when I identified how the collaboration is made in all the areas, it was very obvious that the hiring manager was not committed to join the activity. He didn't want to use the software. a new software with new credentials. And the thing is, we change the business rules because we create a software only oriented for recruiters, and they learn how to manage that system, how to log into the system. But we never create a software to collaborate in other areas of the company. And because of that, we changed the rules. So every person inside of the company who wants to use our own software, they didn't know how to use it. So we live outside of the context to the hiring manager, and we need to fix that. The thing that we identified to solve this was utilize an easy and fast way to authenticate users without losing security, reliability, and personalization. So I propose to do a single sign-on, which is not so hard. But it was easy because we realized that most of the managers have a Facebook account, have a Google account, have a LinkedIn account. So for them it was easier. They don't want to remember or their account. They just need to log in with this. And this allows to the company to have certain security level. This allows to the recruiter to collaborate with the hiring manager, and this allows also to the recruiter to still engage inside of the platform to the hiring manager. And we designed this, and we try to change also these things for all the interfaces. This is for web. This is the view when you are doing social, when you have already your account, but you want to merge that account with a social login. This is how it looks for mobile. We try to do it also responsive. And yeah, the thing is, we try to somehow provide to all the users with this benefit. The thing with the collaboration theory is I try to use those for not steps. I try to use the principles, the 4 principles of collaboration theory, to realize what was happening with the interface. My proposal here right now is not just to show you how good I did the interface or how bad I did the interface. My proposal is, I believe that there is a lot of things to do that we need to do on the enterprise side, and nobody is addressing that issues right now. There is no research, there is no documentation, there is no patterns to say what's good and what's wrong inside of usability enterprise. Me as a UX designer, I cannot find anything that helped me to understand and to improve that part in an easy way. The only thing I believe is that all of us as a UX designer, UX researcher, whatever, we really need to center on this and not try to only focus on the user-centered design, but also be open and try to also understand what is happening with the users and their context. Not the users themselves, but also the teams, the groups, the activities, and for real, to try to create those patterns that doesn't exist. I'm trying to do this. I've still not finished all this research. I was doing this at the last of the year, but I really am very interested in still in doing something to create a pattern libraries for enterprise, to understand how one pattern it can work for many individuals, and it fits inside of a company. So this is my proposal with this talk, And definitely, I am really thankful for the time that you guys provide me right now. And if someone really wants to help me, because I'm very new on all this, it will be very helpful to keep working on that and make things better. Because as I told you, I haven't seen anything to help to understand the user behavior when it's about to interacting with the different individuals. And basically that's my proposal with collaboration theory, to just be more aware of what is happening right now. I don't know if anyone have questions about or want to share something. Yeah. Open. Okay. Yes, sure. I didn't know. We didn't track if they were using Facebook or any social login. We just identified that these users were not using our own register. But the thing is, we talked with some of the managers, and they told us like they rather to use social login. The thing is, we can use a lot of solutions for that, not only social login. I guess we can also authenticate devices, basically install inside of their device something to. The thing is, right now I'm working on an installer for Mac to authenticate the whole computer. And just when you log in your credentials, you automatically are logged to all the things that you need inside of the company. So you don't need to have different type of ways of logging in different applications. You just authenticate your whole device. So I guess that also can work. The thing is, how can we identify those better patterns to solve that problem, not for just one individual, just for a whole company? No, that's the big question. But I don't know if that answered your question. Thank you. Okay. Well, you can find me. This is my Twitter, and this is my Gmail account. As I said, I want to thank you guys for your time, and if you have questions, just let me know. I can share the whole document, which I guess is much better than my talk. I did a whole document about this, and that shows better the results than here. But thank you so much for your time.